Sinisterism is about finding the primal aspects of the left-hand path, primal in history, primal in the psyche, thus obtaining truth. Thomas Leroy.
Greetings, my friends, and welcome back to your dose of sinister heathenry. But for those new to the channel, I'm Thomas Leroy, founder of the International Left-Hand Path organization, the Sect of the Horn God. The sect is an educational foundation created to not only make those with a black flame aware of its glow, but to also restore the shadow aspects to the ancient gods by going deep into the past, not only historically, but also psychologically. For the primal depths of the psyche are limitless. So, if this sounds interesting, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to learn more, join the organization, the Sect of the Horn God, at the link down below. Thank you. Since I was a teenager, and that was a long, long time ago, I have had this obsession with Vlad the Impaler. I believe it began when I read the book In Search of Dracula. There was also a documentary too based on the book. Anyway, what is it about this individual, this Christian, who tortured people that so many of us on the left-hand path find fascinating? Well, in this video, I will attempt to answer that question. The left-hand path is the road to power, personal power. It isn't paved with the saccharine promises of paradise, but instead with the reality of will made flesh. So for those of us who do walk the path, who whisper secret names into the abyss and dare to stare unblinking into the face of our own godhood, a simple, stark fact needs to be embraced. And that is this: the objective realm, the place that most simply drift through like ghosts in the void, is cruel, has always been cruel, and will continue to be cruel. Haven't you figured that out yet? There will never be a utopia. There never was a utopia. There'll never be perfection. There's never been a Garden of Eden, and you'll never reach heaven. There's no true justice, and there never will be. Your child gets murdered and society locks up the killer. That isn't justice. That's just the status quo trying to feel better about itself, because they'll sometimes lock up the innocent just to feel better. A quick cleanup on aisle 5, if you will. True justice would be if your child was to rise from the grave the moment the real killer is executed. But that, of course, doesn't happen in our universe, this objective realm. Even with all our advances in technology and academic ethical reasoning, Western civilization is skating on thin ice. And that ice is melting, and soon we'll have to once more deal with the law of the inevitable. The law of the strong hand and the unyielding will. Thus, we'll be left to do not what's moral, but what's needed. Now, there are plenty of videos out there that will give you the history of Vlad the Impaler, Vlad Dracula, but this isn't going to be one of them. Instead, I'm going to dare to delve into an aspect that's not often touched upon, the deep psychological appeal of a man who's been cursed by history. Yeah, I know he was a Christian, but that was a different time and a different kind of Christianity. Those of us who find ourselves in the shadow of Vlad would do well to heed this truth, the truth that throughout the ages, the world has not been a place of fairness or kindness. That power has belonged to those who would take it. And Christianity was, and always will be, utilized as a tool for power. For those who have claimed dominion know that every man beneath them would, given the chance, slit their throat to wear their crown. So one must sometimes go to extremes to retain their power. Thus, to the masses, Vlad Dracula is a monster. He's even the inspiration for a vampire novel. But a monster is what the weak have always called the strong, and it is the way of those who would walk the left-hand path to learn the lesson that there is no pity on this path, no tolerance for the trembling voice that begs for clemency. The world is not ruled by grace, but to those of you who are on the road to sinister illumination, Vlad should be interpreted as one who mastered the art of fear and transformed it into dominion. The left-hand path is not merely about rebellion, but the refinement of one's own darkness into a weapon, an art, and eventually a throne. Herein lies Vlad's first lesson. Horror is authority. Most of us dabble in horror and face it to one degree or another, don't we? Conventional society, though, trembles before the grotesque, not merely out of disgust, but out of recognition. It's the mirror, or it's the image in the mirror they don't like gazing into. To us, though, the abyss reveals the truth that personal power belongs to those willing to accept it. But cruelty as a metaphor, you may ask? You can say Vlad's use of horror wasn't just an act of cruelty, it was a ritual, an invocation, a testament to the reality of power. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying to go out and impale people to become enlightened. That was a different time, a different mindset, a different reality. But in the face of cruelty, fear is no longer an abstraction, but a sigil carved into the flesh of the defeated. Those who seek the path of self-deification must understand this. To master fear is to shape the world. It's not enough to reject the moral chains of the right-hand path. One must transmute pain, fear, and brutality into a new reality. But Vlad's lesson is not simply one of metaphorical cruelty, it is one of autonomy. In the 15th century, in a location where men either bent the knee to the Holy Roman Emperor or to the Sultan of the Ottoman Turks, he stood as a brake against the tide. His rule was one of will incarnate, a single man defining the machinery of empires. But don't mistake this for mindless savagery. There is no enlightenment in simple bloodletting, no apotheosis in blind destruction. The left-hand path demands transformation, a metamorphosis through darkness into something greater. Vlad's story is an example of this. He wasn't a beast without reason, but a monarch who wielded his terror with precision, an artist whose medium was blood and dread. The lesson here is rage must be disciplined, and the abyss must be navigated with intent. And so, those who carve their names into the bones of the world must ask, are they ready to wield terror not as a tantrum, but as a scalpel? Are they willing to walk alone, sovereign and unshackled, even as the world recoils? To understand the Impaler is to understand that true power is a paradox. It is horror, it is artistry, and it is ultimately a path to something beyond human. They called Vlad Dracula a devil. This may have something to do with the fact that sometimes the word Dracula can be translated not only as dragon, but also as devil. Thus, Dracula can be interpreted as son of the devil. And what of it? Aren't we on this path sometimes referred to as the offspring of the devil or of Satan? And as the offspring of Satan, we do not weep, do not beg, do not suffer the illusions of the lesser, and we do not live like they do, moaning and afraid. Instead, we dare to go down deep into the abyss with the knowledge that we, in the end, will leave an impression and sometimes a scar upon the world. In conclusion, my friends, what do you think? What is it about Vlad the Impaler that's so appealing to people like us? Could it be his unwillingness to bend the knee to outside forces, to go to extremes to retain his independence? Or is it the horror aspect in his utilization of horror in order to control his realm and intimidate his enemies? Because on this path, we often go to the limits to master our inner kingdom and to control our ultimate enemy, ourselves. Leave a comment down below. Until next time.